Hey guys, welcome to another video. I'm in the Tesla right now. Thought I'd start with this one and then jump into my C43. Without wasting too much time, let's just jump straight into it, and I'm going to start with performance, and I'll tell you why. Since the last time this car was on the channel, which was, I have no idea how long ago, it's had a performance upgrade by Tesla, software, hardware upgrade, and it's had some pretty impressive performance gains. Now bear in mind, I suppose, what's the closest comparison when another manufacturer does this? Let's use AMG for example. I've got an AMG. The difference between, say, a standard AMG and the S model, so let's use the C43 for example, what's the difference in power between the two? It's like, what is it, 40 horsepower? Something like that. And what's the difference in price between a C63 and a C63S? You're looking around it's around £10,000. Well, the performance gains of the Model S, so this is the 75D, which I think the whole naming system, it's kind of all been changed around and revamped. And what have they done? They've increased performance by, I mean, this is an electric car, so you know, BHP and things like that, it doesn't really mean much until you actually feel it. But it's had an increase of 70-80 horsepower and a similar amount in terms of torque as well. But the key stat is that the 0 to 60 time has dropped by a full second. So it's gone from 5.2 to 4.2, what they've claimed. And, you know, is the C63S a second quicker than the standard car to 60? I don't think it is. And then, to top all that off, that software upgrade, which is all it kind of was free. There were certain rules and parameters in terms of how old the car was and whatnot, but thankfully this car qualified for that free performance upgrade. And to begin with, the car was never slow. The thing with an electric car, which is just impossible to find in anything else, including supercars, is that initial hit, because peak torque arrives at, you know, it's at 0 RPM. So it's kind of like, you know, you all you'd literally do is put your foot down and it just, yeah, I've lost something down there, and you know, it just throws your head back. And in the real world, something like that's untouchable, because any other car, you're never in the right gear. It needs to fumble about for the right gear to be, you know, in the optimum RPM band and power range, etc. Because, you know, if you floored your car in 6th or 7th in my C43 for example, it's not going to go anywhere. You know, the transmission needs to kick down a few gears before it actually launches, and you know, by the time you've done that, something like this is checked out. So compared to my C43, do you know what, to 60 it'll be very close. I personally think this will be quicker, especially it's that 0 to 30 miles an hour feeling that's just, you know, an electric car is literally untouchable. And this is also 4-wheel drive as well, so there's, you know, very rarely do you get tire slip. And because all the weight is kind of sat really low down, you know, all the weight in this car basically comes from the batteries. There's a lot of them, but they're literally as low as possible. So this car's got a low center of gravity, so for such a big car, it doesn't actually handle that bad. I mean, yes, it's no Porsche or anything, but it's not bad. And my C43, I'm not gonna lie, it is a bit numb to the feeling and everything. The handling isn't, it doesn't feel as nimble as the CLA45 that I had beforehand, which is to be expected. It's not a full-blown, you know, C63 AMG or anything like that. Kind of like out of a corner, grips, floor it. It's weird because it's so fast, but there's no noise. You hear a bit of a whining from the motors, and that's about it. And that's my main thing with electric cars. You know, part of, you know, the thrill of driving is the noise that comes out, you know, the back of the exhaust, which, you know, this doesn't even have any exhaust. Right, what's this like to sit inside? As you're probably aware, or you may not be aware, a lot of the switchgear is taken from Mercedes. This car is a few years old now, so a lot of this stuff, you know, looks kind of looks kind of dated, but the idea is you've got this digital display up here, which at the time when it came out, you know, not many cars had it yet. Audi just kind of brought out their virtual cockpit, and then this giant iPad-like screen here, which you control absolutely everything from. There's minimal, you know, physical buttons, which I'm a bit old-fashioned in that sense. I'm only in my 20s, but when you're driving, I hate touchscreens because you know, you've got to physically look at the screen to do anything. And this, you know, thankfully, because it's really big, nothing's, you know, really small or anything like that, but there's just no substitute for having like a switch gear or something like that, which, you know, my C43 isn't touchscreen, but there's 15 million different ways to do the same thing, which, you know, it's good and bad. But, you know, with the very latest, so the new A-Class, for example, which does have its touchscreen, it's still got physical buttons down here, which, you know, there's just no substitute. And I think BMW does that stuff the best. You know, the iDrive just works the easiest, it's the most logical. Build quality is where, I've mentioned it in previous videos on this particular car, it's a bit of a pain, in terms of, you know, there used to be a lot of rattles and things like that all over this car, whether it was kind of like on the dash itself, headlining, the door panels. But you know what? So far this video, I've not actually heard anything, so I think they're sorted. And because I've said that, I'll hear something now. But generally, you know, build quality isn't, for the price of the car, you know, you're looking at, you know, for the 75D or the equivalent now, it's, you know, 70, 80k, which is a lot of money. And so, you know, you'd expect it to be up to par with the Germans. You got to cut Tesla some slack. They've not been making cars anywhere near as long as those German manufacturers, and they've done a pretty solid job for the number of years that they have been making cars. Right, I was just about to say fuel economy, but I suppose I can't really say that because this doesn't run on fossil fuels. But in terms of, there's a Model 3. It looks weird. I don't like how it looks inside or outside. Right, back to it. So obviously this runs on electricity. You've got a 75 kilowatt battery in this, which in the real world is good for just shy of 300 miles, I'd say. Depends on, you know, what kind of journeys you're doing, which, you know, if we base this purely off range, not great. My C43 on a full tank of fuel will do, you know, between 500 and 600 miles. So, you know, this is like half that. However, each time I go and fill up my C43, that will cost me near enough 80 quid. Whereas to charge this at home with a Tesla charger, from, you know, 0 to 90%, that'll probably cost about 3-4 quid in electricity. It used to be that if you used a Tesla supercharger, which had kind of dotted around, you know, the motorway networks all over the UK, and it's just constantly growing, that used to be free. I think they're slowly changing that. You get a certain number of miles or charging time free per year. Back to the good old prehistoric petrol engine, and straight away the first place I'm going to is the petrol station, because I'm running on fumes at the minute, so bear with me. I suppose we can start with that straight away since I'm heading there anyway. Even though this is a 3 litre bi-turbo V6, it's not that bad on fuel. Yeah, I mentioned it in previous videos. I expected it to be a lot worse than what it is, but you know, I can, you know, if I try, I can get 37 miles per gallon out of it, which that's pretty damn good considering, you know, this is a near enough 400 horsepower car. It's heavier than my previous CLA 45. Right, now that I'm not running on fumes, I suppose we can go into the performance aspect, which you know, it's... See, now that I've been in that Tesla, it's not as instant. But however, I don't care. I just can't do electric just yet. I need... noises coming out of them. I need to hear something. Just from going off what I feel through my bum. On paper, that Model S and this car are very similar, but in the real world, I just feel like that Model S is quicker. If you're on the motorway, you're already doing a speed, 50, 60, 70, whatever, wherever you are, and if you just suddenly put your foot down, one of those rolling roads, that's what I mean by real world. And I just think that electric car just wins because it's always in the right gear, because to start with, they don't have any gears, whereas your car has to fumble around finding that right gear. Whereas with the interior comparison, so I already mentioned before, this is a newer car than the Model S, that particular Model S, so it is updated somewhat, and obviously this is an AMG vehicle, so the cockpit is kind of, I've got red seat belts, I've got an AMG steering wheel, and overall it's a nicer place to be, in my opinion. How this stuff works, it's not the very latest MBUX, it's the one just before that, and to be fair, even now there are certain things that just get on my nerves. Carplay doesn't work anywhere near as easily as in my previous CLA45, which was a lot simpler, but it just meant it worked. It's quite glitchy in this, and I always use Carplay for my maps, for example, Waze and Google Maps. I just think they're always better than any car system. I mentioned build quality in the Tesla, and I didn't really hear any rattles in that, but I've just noticed driving now, I can hear a lot of rattles. I don't know if that's because I've got things in the many different compartments in this, but there's something for sure. I don't know what it is. It's annoying me. Anyway guys, there's a quick little comparison of the C43 AMG and the Tesla Model S 75D. As always, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in the next video.